Welcome to another live Q&A session. So the way that this works is if you are inside of the community, you ask questions in advance on the live Q&A thread, and then on Thursdays I come on and I answer them live. All of the recordings from the past live feeds are available if you just click on topics and then you click on live Q&A, and you'll also find the post for you to leave your own questions underneath the featured posts in the beginning of the community. Honestly, I think it's the only featured post. So we're going to dive in. I'm going to answer all of the questions that were submitted in advance, and then if there's time at the end, then I will take additional questions. Okay. I need my glasses. All right, so Brianna asked this question, and then Kendra came on and was like, yes, I need to know too. So they're asking, how would you handle a 14-month-old that's constantly getting into the dog's water bowl? Keeping it put up is not an option. It's a 5-gallon refilling bowl. I try to redirect to something else, and then he tries to climb into it most of the time. So I'm laughing at this because we go through this too. We have 2 dogs. We've had the dogs the whole time that the kids have been around. And so of course they get curious about the bowls. We've dealt with it in a couple of different ways. The first one is by meeting their need. And that need was either playing with the dog food or playing with the water, usually the water. And I think you're talking about the water. So I might say, oh, yucky, we don't play in the dog's water. Come on, you want to play with water? And then I would show them where to get their water bowl, a bowl that they could play with, and we'll put a little bit of water in it. And then they could play on the floor. Or sometimes when we were in an apartment, I would put out a towel. Or maybe if it's a summer day, I'll take them outside. But basically I'm showing them, no, you can't play with this water. But if you want to play with water, this is how you play with water. And then they will start to realize that, and now next time they want to play with water, maybe they go and get that certain bowl that you showed them. And then the key there is to say, sure, yeah, you want to play with water, and give them a little bit of water in the bowl. Because if you say no when they're communicating, I have this need to play with water, they're going to go to the dog's bowls. The other thing that was helpful to us was to make them part of like the process of taking care of the dog's bowls. So even Emma, who is not even 2 yet, I would say from the time she was like 16 months or something, she likes to give the dogs food. So she'll get the little scooper, she'll walk back and forth, she'll fill up the dog bowls. Maybe we help them do the water, we'll get them a little cup and do the water. Zoe at this point, like her job is to actually give one of the dogs water. It's like on her responsibilities chart. And then the last kind of thing that helped us was to, hold on. If you come into my live feed to be a creep, please know that I'm going to block you because I'm not here for that. Bye. Okay, that was definitely from the JoJo Siwa movie, The J Team, and I'm sorry, I don't even know why I said that. Okay. So the last thing that you can do is sort of like embrace what they're trying to do. So I remember when Zoe was really curious about the dog bowls, what I would do is, like, she would want to eat her food or drink her water like a dog. So we would just like let her put her plate of food on the floor and she would like eat like a doggy. And it was weird. It's not like the social norm. It lasted like a couple of weeks and then the excitement of it was over, and it sort of like let her meet that need of being curious, or meet that curiosity around the dog bowls. Next question is from Marissa. Marissa says, any tips for starting holistic/gentle parenting from day 1? And her kids are ages 6, 4, and 3 months. So first of all, if you go on my TikTok, there's a playlist there that says getting started. And it's a lot of just like initial mindset stuff. I am working on a book that's literally like a beginner's guide. But if I could tell you anything without telling you the whole book, okay, you need to start with connection. Okay, a lot of times we get into these relationships with our kids where it's really about control. It's about getting them to do what we want, punishing them if they don't perform, punishing them if they don't, meet our expectations, which a lot of times we don't clearly tell them what our expectations are. When we want to shift away from that, we need to switch to to connection. We need to switch to realizing that they are not here to ruin your life. They are not here to give you a hard time. Pretty much every single situation, even when it feels like they're doing it to you, they're having a hard time themselves. Hey, Desiree. They're having a hard time themselves. And so we need to switch to that kind of connection. In order to switch to that connection, we need to start thinking about where we can release some of the control that we've really fallen into, right? So, what are the things I always say, like, start with what's most stressful in your day to day, right? Because the things that are stressful in my day to day are not going to be the same things that are stressful in your day to day. So, what times during the day do you butt head the most with your kids? Do you have the most issues? Start there and try to think about, can I release any control here? Oh, hold on. Sorry. I forgot to turn on do not disturb. Can I release any control here? And make room for the connection that we now need. Now, your kids, Marissa, are 6, 4, and 3 months old. The 3-month-old's golden. There might be some stress there just because of like the stress in the household, and maybe the baby might be a little anxious when certain things are happening, or certain transitions, depending on how aware they are right now of their surroundings. It's hard to like remember, even though it was less than 2 years ago, like 3 months old, what are they capable of? But the 3-month-old I wouldn't worry about too much. As you change the dynamic in the household, then the 3-month-old will just follow suit. When it comes to the 4-year-old and the 6-year-old, depending on really like what's been going on in your household, I would have a conversation with them. I would like a pleasant time, not in the middle of like an argument, nothing like that. Like literally just out of nowhere one day, maybe say, hey, can we have a family meeting? Or, hey, I want to tell you guys something. I've been noticing, and make sure you take responsibility, okay? And make sure that we're not blaming. You don't want to blame yourself, because you don't want to become in this like passive role of like, now all of a sudden your whole parenting style is being sorry about the parenting that you did for the last 6 years. But try to look at like, what are the problems in the household and how you're going to solve it. You can still apologize. You can still acknowledge, where you are responsible for this, but the initial conversation shouldn't be like a guilt thing. Okay. So you're going to sit them down. Hey, let's have a family meeting. I've been noticing that it's not really kind the way that we're speaking to each other. We're yelling at each other a lot. I'm yelling at you and you're yelling at me, and we're slamming doors, and sometimes I hit you. And I've been thinking, and I don't really want to have that kind of relationship with you. What do you think? And usually they're going to agree, because who wants that, right? So I've been thinking we can try these new things to make it a little bit better. I've been thinking that when one of us is frustrated, the other one can say, stop, let's take a break. And everybody has to take a break, or like come up with something so that in those moments, whoever's feeling like a little bit more in the victim role can say, whoa, let's step back right here, right? Come up with solutions. I know I always yell at you in the morning when I need you to get your clothes on and you're not getting your clothes on. And I know it's stressful for you to get your clothes on in the morning because you're tired too. So from now on, what we're going to do is we're going to lay out clothes the night before. And somebody's asking, okay, well, we talked about 3-month-olds, right? Which is really kind of not affected too much at this point, right? And then we're talking about now like a 4 or a 6-year-old. And so somebody's asking now, like, what about if you're in between? What about like a 3-year-old? Or let's say if in my case, like a 2-year-old, like Zoe was around 2 years old when I started making my transition. I think you use as much words as they can handle. And then but really by you just changing your tone and changing the way that you communicate with them and changing the way that you approach them, they will start to learn and follow suit. I talked about yesterday on my live, Zoe used to be like not want to respond when we would say her name, because we would be like, it was always like Zoe, and then like some kind of like you need to stop doing this, or Zoe, stop doing that. And we realized like of course she doesn't want to respond when we call her name, because every time we call her name, we're nagging at her for something. And so we had to become conscious of that. And even though she wasn't old enough at that point to have a whole conversation about it, by us just changing and making sure that throughout the day we were saying, Zoe, I love you. Zoe, I love being your mom. Zoe, that was so kind what you just did. Now she is okay with being responsive to her name, because who knows what's going to come after her name. It could be something great. It could be just something that I want to tell her, or it could be a correction, but it's not always a correction. Okay, so Heather, Heather's question is next, and I am going to probably paraphrase this a little bit because it's super long, but if you're in the community, go and read Heather's post, because I think a lot of us sometimes deal with this. I'm just trying to jolt my memory here. But basically, like, Heather has 3 young kids and she's also pregnant. She has a mother's helper that comes to the house sometimes, who is 13 years old. Some situation came up where the mother of the 13-year-old was like, hey, I need you, like, can the 13-year-old like stay at your house? And Heather's like, no problem. She's good with the girls. Everything's good. And so now this 13-year-old is staying in the house, and Heather started noticing that some things were happening with her kids. Her kids were telling her that this older child was telling them to hit each other, that this older child was telling them to color on the walls, like telling them to do disruptive things or harmful things that they usually wouldn't do. And so the kids were upset. Heather was upset. What do you do now? Because it's not your kid to really discipline, but the child is kind of staying with them. So the girl winds up going home. They're frustrated with her, the 13-year-old and the 13-year-old's mother. But now the question is really like, what are my next steps? And I did also answer this in the community, but here's how I would handle it. Okay. And just kind of important note, like, her kids were coming to her and saying, like, so-and-so told me I had to hit my little sister. So-and-so told me I had to color on the wall. So-and-so told me to do this, and I'm really upset about this. My advice would be, number one, like, don't worry about how the 13-year-old and her mother are feeling about the situation right now. Like, you did what you needed to do to keep your kids safe. You asked her to be picked up and to leave. You're not comfortable with her being alone with your kids. I am 100% like always a believer of going with your gut instinct on that. If your gut was telling you, something's not sitting right, I don't feel comfortable with her being with my children alone, I always think that you need to listen to that. Next thing I would do is I would ask the kids what they want to talk about, because sometimes what we're thinking of in certain situations is not, like, the kids might have never thought of that. So even like, you might think like, that's really traumatizing. They're not going to understand boundaries with their body. They're going to, they've just been manipulated. Like, that's going through your brain, like, as the grown up. The 6-year-old is likely not thinking that. So my first stop is, like, before I give them any ideas of what they should be upset or concerned about, I would ask them, how did that make you feel? That was really frustrating. I can see that you're really upset. What do you want to talk about? What will be helpful for you if we talk about it now? And then kind of let them lead the conversation a little bit, address their concerns. An important thing with this is, I would start teaching. You don't have to do it in that moment when things are still stressful, but I would definitely start teaching, like, the boundaries and the responsibility for your own actions. I know that you felt a lot of pressure when so-and-so told you to hit your sister. Maybe she told you that you were going to get in trouble if you didn't. Maybe she told you that she was going to hit you if you didn't do it, right? Whatever. I don't know what the situation was. I know it was really stressful. I know you felt a lot of pressure, but I want to tell you something. I want to tell you that you are in control of your body. You are so powerful that you are in control of your own body. Your body can't do anything unless your brain tells it to do that thing. So if somebody says, I want you to eat this marker, you can tell your body, no, don't eat this marker. And when somebody says to go color on the walls, and you know that it's not right and it feels wrong and it feels uncomfortable, you don't need to listen to them. What you can do is you can come and get mom, because that is crossing a boundary, and I will help you to enforce your boundaries. And then reiterate to them, like, you will never get in trouble for enforcing your boundaries. You know, mommy's here to teach you how to keep your body safe and how to keep your mind safe. And when you feel like something's making you uncomfortable, or you feel a little out of control in your body, or you feel like your mind can't really control your body that well, then you come and get mom. And and then how far you need to go with it. Like with Zoe, I do teach her, just because of safety reasons when we're out, like if somebody crosses your boundary and you tell them stop and you try to go get mom and they don't let you go get mom and they continue to cross your boundaries, like I tell her, you can yell, hit, kick, punch, I don't care, and get to go and get mom. So hopefully that's helpful, Heather. All right. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to pronounce your name, so I'm just going to try. I'm thinking it's Brianda. I've never seen that name before, but please correct me if I'm wrong. All right, Brianda. I'm starting this journey, finally 100%, not just learning and learning and learning. That's funny because we do get stuck in that cycle, right? I was there with a lot of my emotional healing where I knew all of the logistics of like emotional healing, but I couldn't bring myself to actually start doing any healing, right? So we get there. So, all right, so I'm finally in it. I'm not just going to keep like learning. I'm actually going to do this with my kids. Awesome. Congratulations. I've started not stepping into their fights. So they are 6, 4, and 14 months old. I've started not stepping into their fights and separating, and instead asking for each one's perspective, how we can fix it. And that's been super helpful. But I'm struggling with my 6-year-old not taking things from the 4-year-old if he thinks he should have it. Yelling at him, even spanking him sometimes, trying to parent him. We haven't swatted or spanked in years. The 4-year-old has never been spanked except for a few times when we fell back into old habits. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to see if I can. Okay. So I think what you're saying here is 6-year-old is sort of trying to parent the 4-year-old a little bit. And the way that the 6-year-old is parenting the 4-year-old is in a way that you are not comfortable with. So essentially, like 6-year-old takes the 4-year-old's toy, or 4-year-old takes the 6-year-old's toy. 6-year-old is like spanking the 4-year-old, yelling at him. You're saying, listen, I haven't hit my kids in years. Sometimes I do threaten, sometimes I do make a mistake, that, and I know you know this. If you're here, I know you know this. You have to find something else to do. I've seen other creators literally suggest covering your mouth. Like if you feel like you are out of control, like literally, like physically covering your mouth, because you need to get yourself regulated before you say anything. Because even though you're apologizing, even though you're maybe not following through, by you making these threats, he's still having anxiety from it. So like if you and that's not like a professional diagnosis, that's just the words that came out of my mouth. But if you used to hit him, you used to hit his brother, he could be triggered in some way when you're threatening it, and it is just as traumatizing as you physically doing it. So definitely work on that, and I know that you need to work on that. As far as how the 6-year-old is treating the 4-year-old, and it sounds like some of it is about toys. I would have them each pick their toys that are theirs. They never have to share them, right? So go through all the toys. These are your special things. I don't allow more than like 5 or 10 special things because I don't want to mentally keep track of that much. But they each have like their special things. No, they never have to share it. So if this marker is my special thing and Emma starts using it, if I'm cool with it, she can use it. As soon as I want it back, she has to give it back. That's how it works with special things. Everything else in my house, you get to use it until you are done using it. You don't have to give it up just because somebody else wants it. And so I would just figure out what your boundary is around like sharing, and whose turn it is and who should have something or not have something. Figure out what that boundary is and stay very consistent. I'm talking about, like, I don't even care if it's the 14-month-old. If the 14-month-old has something that is not a, individually designated toy and somebody else wants it, you do not take that toy from the 14-month-old because she's a baby or he's a baby. He doesn't understand. It's fine. Just take it. He'll get over it in a minute. No. If somebody has a toy, the boundary is if somebody has a toy, they get to keep it until they are done playing with it. You don't get to take it just because you want it. Go play with something else. Now, let's say that scenario pops up. You enforce the boundary. 6-year-old now is pissed off. He's frustrated. No, I want the toy back. I don't want to follow this boundary. Now you're going to shift focus. 4-year-old should be off playing with the toy somewhere, not even worrying about it. And you're going to shift focus to helping the 6-year-old deal with feelings of frustration, feelings of disappointment, how to control your mind, how to control your body, how to properly ask for something. It looks like your brother's really having fun playing with that thing. So if you want it now, you want it sooner than when he's done playing with it. What if you go get something to trade him? What if you go find something that you can play with together and then you can do a swap? Something like that. Help him problem solve. As far as like hitting, like we have a very strong boundary in our house of no hitting. So if it was my house and he was hitting, he will be separated. I need to make sure that your sibling is safe. And until you can control your mind and control your body, you're going to have to sit in the kitchen with me while I do the dishes. Do you want to bring a toy in here? Do you want to help me do the dishes? You're not punished, but I can't have you in the room with them if I don't think that they are going to be safe. So start those couple of things, start kind of switching your mindset, start definitely looking at how you are talking to them, the atmosphere that you're creating. Like if it's not acceptable to hit, it's not even acceptable to threaten to hit, like that is off the table. And really start teaching them how to problem solve, teaching them how to communicate rather than just saying like, this is not how you do it. Try saying, this is how you do it. All right, I have one more question that was submitted from the community. Then I'm going to grab Kathy's question because she's watching live from the community. And then I probably have a couple of minutes to take some more questions from TikTok or wherever you guys want to ask them. Okay, last question previously submitted is from Kendra. Kendra says, it's getting to be cold outside and my 14-month-old can't go play outside as much. I feel like he and I are both feeling stuck. Any ideas to keep him engaged that don't include screens? Yeah, so at 14 months old, you really can just involve them in the day-to-day. So if you are going to the supermarket, let them help you. Let them help you pick out the produce. Make them in charge of something. They can be in charge of twisting the produce bag before it goes in the cart. I don't know. Even like make up a task. They can be in charge of, sniffing it before it goes in the bag. I don't know. If you are doing laundry, let them sit with you. Let them fold the rags. Even if they're not doing it perfectly, you're teaching them. And that is motor skills and that is coordination. If you are cleaning the kitchen, maybe give them a couple of pans and spoons to play with. That can be music, that can be manipulative. You don't have to, I'm not one that enjoys like sitting and playing with Barbies. I just don't, I will occasionally, maybe do like a 10-minute like focused play with them. I don't like it. I don't like doing it. So I've always just really kept my kids involved in the day-to-day of what I'm doing. You can stretch, you can do a yoga video on YouTube. Cosmic Kids Yoga is really good. You can give them something random. Oh, one of my favorite things to do, if you go to Dollar Tree, you get those rolls of paper streamers and literally just give them the whole roll. You usually get 2 rolls for $1, so it's like 50 cents, and just open it up and let them go all around the house with it. I'm telling you, they'll be occupied for like at least an hour. wrap it around the furniture, whatever. At the end of the day, just toss it. That's always a good idea. And then also see like what you can do in your community if you can get out. We love going to PetSmart or Petco and looking at the fish. The kids yoga is Cosmic Kids, and she has like brain break videos and meditation videos and themed yoga for kids. It's really cute. But yeah, we like to go to Petco, PetSmart. We will look at the fish. We'll look at the cats that are up for adoption. We might just go to a supermarket, even if we don't really need anything. And she likes to push around the little cart, so we would let her push around the little cart, but just get creative, things like that. But don't stress it too much. If you just involve them in the day-to-day, talk to them, they're gonna be okay. All right, so Kathy asked, how do I gently address the getting dressed and undressed? My daughter lately runs and fights each time we have to leave the house, even though she does want to go out, or even to change into pajamas, she's running. How old, Kathy? Three. So sometimes, let me tell you some things that have worked with some of my one-on-one clients in the past. Sometimes you get into like, okay, the first time that they ran away because they weren't going to get dressed was maybe really fun, or maybe they got a rise out of you, or maybe they didn't have to get dressed. And so now it becomes this almost habit, because it's fun for them, even though you might be like stressed out and yelling at them and like telling them, they still take that as attention, right? So what you can do is try to work it in, if you can, to the routine. Okay, it won't be a permanent thing, because so she's Kathy saying, yeah, she does, she laughs and runs away. So work it into the routine. That won't be a permanent thing. I'm not saying like for the rest of your life you're going to have to chase your child around the house before you get her clothes on. But by making it part of the routine, you're taking away that power of it. And eventually it'll fade out on its own. So, oh, my light is starting to go out. So you might put the clothes in one certain spot and then go stand on the other side of the house and say, I bet you I'm going to get your clothes first. And then maybe she'll come over and then you guys could race over to the clothes. All right, got it. And then you can kind of scoop her up too. Okay, time to get dressed. Maybe you have to do 3 laps to go get your clothes on. Or maybe every time you get an article of clothes on, I'm going to chase you around the kitchen island. I don't know, whatever works for your house. But make it part of the routine. And see if that helps to like take some of the stress away from it. And then the other thing you can do is try to kind of do like a little bit of prep and planning. So if like pajamas is a hard time, because pajamas transitions into going to the bathroom, brushing teeth, and then getting straight into bed, like think about how can I make the transition a little bit smoother. Maybe getting pajamas on means a 5-minute race with mom, or maybe after I get pajamas on every day, I get to pick 2 books for mom to read. Or my daughter loves when we sit on the couch and look at pictures. She likes if we go to Google Photos and we find like just the pictures of her and like look at all of her old pictures. So we do that after pajamas because it entices them to want to get through that transition of getting into pajamas, and get to the next step. But yeah, try making it part of the process. I had one mama who I did one-on-one coaching with, and her son would always do that with shoes. And so we decided, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do 3 laps around, and then we're going to race to the shoes. And like after a day or 2, he was like, no, I'm good. Let's just get the shoes on. And he was around the same age, around 3 years old. So let me know in the community how that works for you. All right, I'm gonna look. I'm probably gonna do like 1 or 2 questions from TikTok, and then I'm gonna go eat some lunch. So remember, if you want your questions like guaranteed to be answered, you got to ask them in the community in advance, because then I make sure I plan enough time. So let me scroll back. Sensory play is good for 14 months olds. Yeah, slime in a bag with beads, rice in a tub with toys, messy but fun. Yeah, love it. We get one of those like $10 um, plastic pools from Walmart. Sometimes they're less than $10. And so we can like put that on the kitchen floor and then put like little bowls with water in it, or you can do rice, or in the winter we do like baking soda with water. It gets this like snow consistency, and then we'll put all the frozen toys in it. So yeah, you can definitely do stuff like that. Cosmic Kids Yoga, definitely check it out. I'm bad with that. My baby always says he doesn't care if he hits, and my response is always, should I start? Yeah. Try to just make like if a behavior is unacceptable, then even like the threat of the behavior is unacceptable. Because now all of a sudden, like you've given it power. You've said, you know, I'm not really going to hit you, but I'm going to threaten to hit you. And then you kind of have two options at that point. Either the child is not going to listen to you and respect you because they know that you're not going to hit them, right? And your threat is empty. Or you're going to wind up hitting your child, and now we're starting at square one again. So it's not really like benefiting. 3-year want my 3-year-old that wants all 15 Paw Patrol cars, then the 17-month-old that wants to play too. I'm not sure what you're asking. So like one of the kids wants to take like all of the Paw Patrol cars. Maybe what you can do is put them in like a basket. So like maybe like that's his whole basket. So when we talk about sharing, right? I think that's what you're referring to, but correct me if I'm wrong. But like we talk about sharing and we say like, okay, you don't have to share something if you're playing with it just because somebody else wants it. And it's like, okay, well, what if we have 15 Paw Patrol cars and my 3-year-old wants like literally all of them? What I would do is maybe either separate it into 2 batches, like just figure out what the boundary is there, right? Like, do you want to put them all in one basket and say whoever's playing with the Paw Patrol cars gets to play with all of them? Do you want to put it in 2 baskets and be like, you can have half the Paw Patrol cars, but then the other half is like open to anybody else who wants to play with it? Or do you want to put a limit on it and say like only the ones that you have in your hands? For me, like I could understand the frustration on both sides. It's like when my daughters play with the little Frozen dolls, the little figures, you know, just because Zoe doesn't like have them in her hands doesn't mean they're not like part of her scene. So I would just try to not put too much control there because we do want them to have that play. But maybe you can like break it out into little batches, or pick like 2 or 3 that are only for the baby and then keep those separate. And so the older one can take the rest of them. Can you touch on inappropriate language once they're older and ignoring gets uncomfortable? Can you touch upon inappropriate language? Let me know what you mean by that. What do you mean by inappropriate language? And what do you mean by ignoring it until it gets uncomfortable? If you can answer me quickly, I'll answer that question before I pop off. Otherwise, I'm telling you, join the community. I answer every single question in there. We'll look for one more question while I wait for that. Okay. How do you join the community? There's a link in my bio. All right, I am going to go eat some lunch. If you, when they're younger, you don't know what it means, I feel ignoring it is best. Give me an example of what do you mean? What do you mean by inappropriate language? I'm going to try and pop on. I'm going to try and stay on for a minute while you answer me. But stuff like this is good conversations to have in the community too, because we can get more information and then it can help other people. Even as light as saying stupid. Okay, cool. So that's why, and I want to be clear here. Do you see how, and I'm not like treating you like a child, but this is just a good example. When somebody asks a question, when a child asks a question, I think like this is like to your point. When somebody asks a question, you don't want to like give them so much information until you clarify what they actually meant. And so one thing that I always do is no matter how young they are, if they start saying a word like you're stupid, I would always ask like, What do you think that means? What do you mean by that? Right? Because the original question is, can you touch upon inappropriate language? Now, I could have given a whole response about curse words or about like sexual words, and that could have been nothing about what you're talking about, right? So when it comes to kids, I would say when they're saying things, always dig deeper. Always say, what do you mean by that? What do you think that means? What was your intention? Why are you saying that? So if a kid is using word like, stupid, I would say, okay, why did you call him that? What are you actually trying to communicate? Because if you're frustrated that he did something to you, or you're frustrated that this isn't going your way, calling him a name is not going to solve that. But if you let me know, then I can help you solve that. Would it be more effective if you asked him to share with you? Would it be more effective if you told him that you need some personal space and created a boundary? Would this be more effective? Now, I will say, I would not ignore it until they get older. See, the skills with children, they build, right? So the child will go through, let's say, years of you ignoring it and think that it's appropriate, and not Nala is saying she's saying it because she knows that we don't like it. So this is where we take the power away from it, right? This is where we start asking them questions instead of having an emotional response and saying like, why would you call him that? Why would you say that? That's terrible. Just, oh, why would you use that word? I don't really like to use that word because it's not really kind, and we usually try and be kind. I might say instead, hey, I didn't like when you did this, or hey, you're not really respecting my boundaries. But I wouldn't use this other word, and then kind of, let it go. But not to ignore it completely, because you want them to get the skills. You want them to learn like, oh, instead of saying this, I should have said that, or oh, in this home, saying this or doing this is not acceptable. It is definitely harder if you allow them to kind of like build up a skill that says this is appropriate, or I'm getting a negative reaction, or I'm not getting any reaction, and then try to address it when they're older and they're like, well, what's the big deal? I've been doing this like since I'm 3. You know what I mean? So hopefully that was helpful, but definitely join the community. We can dig deeper in there. Okay, I'm really gonna go eat some lunch. Thank you so much for joining. I will see you guys, Desiree and Kathy, in the community for sure. I appreciate you being here. Book club, which is now Growth Club, is on Sunday morning. 9:30. I will hopefully see you there too.